So most people know what a monopoly is and why they're illegal, right? Because monopoly is basically a situation in which you, the consumer, only get to buy from one vendor and there's no choice. So the government and the laws really crack down on preventing that from happening. But there's actually the opposite as well. Imagine a situation in which there's only one buyer for a particular type of product or a particular type of service. And that one buyer suddenly gets big enough that they can control the whole market. Well, that thing is called a monopsony. We talk about that concept here when we analyze a business for our podcast, Acquisitions Anonymous, our podcast about business buying. Here it is.
I think it's tricky too. Like you could sign the NDA on this and find out, let's just say, for example, that like Zippo or Burnsomatic or somebody like that is 50 or 70 or 80% of their business. You know, that's one reason it hasn't sold is they have one customer.
Yep.
And, you know, typically like if you're buying a business, you're like, I want to figure out, you know, up the food chain vendors and then down the food chain customers, like, how can I de-risk this? But in those instances, and in this instance, if that's the case, the seller's going to be like, you can't go talk to Zippo. You can't talk to Burnsomatic until, you know, maybe days before close. So I think you are somewhat limited in how you triangulate about the business if there is customer concentration or vendor concentration.
Yes. I mean, that would make this thing a lot less attractive if it is functionally a captive contract manufacturer with one customer. Then you're just buying a contract. Basically.
What do you call that, Michael? You've told us before. Monopsony?
A monopsony? Yeah.
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 What is a monopsony again? Remind me.
It's basically an inverse monopoly. So the idea of a monopoly is you only have one supplier. A monopsony is you only have one buyer. So in theory, for example, the U.S. Department of Defense is a monopsony, right, of buying military weapons here. But you start to see monopsonies occur naturally in markets as well. And you're like, if you look at what, say, Target and Walmart do, or the big grocery chains, they end up being like there's a number one and a number two, right? Or folks that are in the basically like meat packing or meat processing or any of those kind of things, you'll see it like there's just a natural monopsony gets created where there's only one or two buyers for a given thing. And that's why you don't see, except in rare circumstances, most of the suppliers for Target or Walmart are like barely getting by. It's because Target, you have to sell to Target and they'll tell you what they're going to pay. And if you don't like cut the price down, they'll go to somebody else to offer the same thing. So that's what monopsony is, when there's very few buyers and they carve out all the margin from the suppliers. Home Depot Lowe's is another example. There you go. That's a perfect one.